Did you know that more than 43% of Californians are living paycheck to paycheck, trying to survive in a state that's often seen as a symbol of prosperity? Despite its shining image, the Golden State is grappling with a growing financial crisis. The middle class, the heart of the American dream, is under immense pressure. With housing costs surging, healthcare expenses climbing, and inflation biting harder than ever, many families are slipping into financial turmoil. In this second episode, we'll take a deep dive into the top 6 poorest cities in California. Number 6. Sacramento. A darker reality looms in the background as the city's economy thrives with burgeoning industries and a buzz of innovation. Approximately 21.3% of Sacramento's residents live below the federal poverty line, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. This statistic, however, fails to capture the true extent of hardship faced by many families who earn just above the poverty threshold, but still struggle to meet their basic needs. The soaring cost of living in California's capital intensifies the challenges for these households. Housing is perhaps the most significant hurdle for Sacramento residents. The median home price stands at an intimidating $480,000, putting homeownership out of reach for many. Renters fare no better. The average monthly rent for a 2-bedroom apartment exceeds $1,950, significantly higher than the national average of $1,300. With such high housing costs, more than half of renters' incomes often go toward rent, leaving little for other necessities. Everyday expenses compound the financial pressure. Sacramento's grocery costs are nearly 20% higher than the national average, making it harder for families to maintain a healthy diet. Utilities are another significant expense, with monthly bills averaging $450 due to the city's hot summers and chilly winters. Even Sacramento's middle class finds itself under siege. The average household income in the city is approximately $71,000 per year, yet the average household expenses total over $75,000 annually. Housing, transportation, groceries, utilities, healthcare, and debt payments stretch budgets to the breaking point. This gap forces families to rely on credit cards, personal loans, or savings to cover monthly expenses, leading to mounting debt and financial precarity. A 2023 report by the Urban Institute revealed that nearly 34% of households carry past due debt. 5. Fresno. Fresno's economic reality presents a troubling picture of life on the edge for many of its residents. The city's poverty rate of 22.6%, nearly double the national average, underscores the widespread financial struggles faced by a large portion of the population. While Fresno's cost of living is lower than other major California cities, it remains high enough to strain household budgets, with the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment exceeding $1,600 and the median home price climbing to $400,000. These escalating housing costs make stability a distant dream for many, exacerbating a cycle of hardship that permeates the community. The challenges extend beyond housing. Basic necessities such as healthcare, childcare, and transportation continue to rise in cost, further stretching already thin wallets. Fresno's cost of living index of 102, just above the national baseline, reflects a reality where expenses outpace income. This is particularly stark when juxtaposed with the city's median household income of $57,000, substantially below the national median of $74,580. For Fresno families, the math simply doesn't add up. With average annual household expenses of $60,000, many are left grappling with impossible choices between essentials like food, healthcare, and saving for the future. The impact of these economic pressures is acutely felt by middle-class families earning between $50,000 and $100,000 annually. These households occupy a precarious middle ground, earning too much to qualify for government assistance, but too little to comfortably cover the rising cost of living. A report from the California Policy Lab in 2022 revealed that nearly 60% of Fresno households have little to no emergency savings. This leaves them vulnerable to even minor financial shocks, such as an unexpected medical bill or car repair, which can spiral into a full-blown crisis. 4. San Diego. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, nearly 23% of the city's population now lives below the poverty line. In 2023, the median home price in San Diego exceeded $900,000, an astronomical figure that places homeownership out of reach for many residents. For renters, the situation is equally dire, with the average rent for a two-bedroom apartment hovering around $2,600 per month, significantly above the national average. While San Diego's median household income of $80,000 is higher than the national average, it still falls short of providing a comfortable standard of living. With the basic expenses of housing, utilities, food, healthcare, and transportation eating into household budgets, families are finding it increasingly difficult to get by. A typical family in San Diego, comprising 2 working adults and 2 children, faces monthly expenses that easily exceed $6,000. After covering the rent and utilities, these families have little left over for savings, emergencies, or leisure, and are often one unexpected expense away from financial crisis. The financial strain doesn't stop with housing. Healthcare costs have skyrocketed in recent years, further exacerbating the challenges faced by middle-class families. In 2023, the average annual premium for family health insurance was over $22,000, with families paying nearly $6,500 of that cost out of pocket. For many households, this represents a substantial portion of their already limited budget. With these mounting pressures, it is no wonder that a significant portion of the middle class in San Diego is living paycheck to paycheck. According to the California Budget and Policy Center, nearly 40% of households in San Diego are unable to cover their basic needs without assistance. For these families, any financial disruption, whether it's an unexpected medical emergency, a sudden car repair, or a job loss, can quickly spiral into disaster. The buffer between financial stability and poverty is so thin that even small setbacks can send families into a downward spiral. 3. Los Angeles. The poverty rate in Los Angeles has become an increasingly urgent issue, reflecting a troubling trend in a city known for its wealth and opportunity. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, approximately 24.3% of residents live below the federal poverty line, which is far higher than the national average. For families with children, the situation is even more dire, with child poverty rates hovering around 25%. For many residents who manage to earn a middle-class income, financial security is still an elusive dream. The average household income in Los Angeles is about $72,000 per year, which, on paper, seems sufficient for a comfortable lifestyle. However, the cost of living in the city has reached astronomical levels, making it increasingly difficult for middle-income families to keep up. The median home price in Los Angeles is over $750,000, while rents for modest two-bedroom apartments easily exceed $2,500 per month. These high housing costs consume a significant portion of household income, often more than half, leaving little room for savings or discretionary spending. The growing disparity between wages and living expenses is not limited to housing alone. Transportation costs in Los Angeles, where a car is often essential for getting around, add another layer of financial strain. The average monthly cost of transportation, including car payments, gas, and insurance, can easily surpass $800 for many families. This, combined with healthcare expenses, creates a scenario where even middle-class families are struggling. Health insurance premiums for a family plan in the U.S. can exceed $22,000 annually, a burden that many middle-income earners in Los Angeles are ill-equipped to bear. When families are forced to take on loans or use credit cards just to cover everyday expenses, it paints a grim picture of their financial well-being. Perhaps one of the most alarming consequences of rising living costs in Los Angeles is the blurring of lines between the middle class and poverty. Families that were once comfortably middle class are now slipping into poverty as they struggle to keep up with rising housing costs and other living expenses. The American dream, once seen as attainable through hard work and perseverance, is becoming increasingly out of reach for many in Los Angeles. To Arcata, a small city nestled in California's Humboldt County, faces a unique but increasingly familiar set of challenges. With a population of 18,536 and a poverty rate of 34.5%, this community is grappling with economic pressures that threaten to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The high cost of living, particularly the skyrocketing housing prices, has placed a heavy burden on the residents, many of whom are already living on the edge financially. For many in Arcata, the dream of homeownership remains just that, a dream, while the reality of living paycheck to paycheck becomes more apparent each day. The housing market in Arcata paints a grim picture. As of 2023, the median home price is around $380,000, a sum far beyond what the average household income can support. In fact, with the average household income in Arcata hovering at just $45,000 per year, the dream of owning a home is increasingly out of reach for many. This price point, although lower than in California's larger metropolitan areas, is still significantly higher than the national average, making it unaffordable for those whose wages are not keeping pace with the soaring costs of housing. Renting offers little relief, with the average cost of a modest apartment ranging from $1,600 to $2,000 per month. This steep rent often forces families into overcrowded conditions or forces them to live on the periphery of the city, pushing up commuting times and costs. In a city where public transportation options are limited, the added strain of a longer commute makes an already difficult situation even worse. But it's not just housing that's unaffordable. Basic necessities like groceries, utilities, and healthcare add to the financial strain. For a family of four, the monthly grocery bill can easily exceed $500, a staggering amount when the average household income is just $45,000. Utilities, including electricity, water, and internet, push monthly expenses to an additional $300 to $400. Healthcare, which remains a significant concern for many residents, compounds the problem. Whether it's through high premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, or costly co-pays for medical visits, the rising cost of healthcare eats into already tight budgets. Many residents are left without sufficient insurance or struggle to pay for necessary treatments, leaving them vulnerable to further financial hardship. Angeles. Number 1. Arvin, a small city in Kern County, California, has long been a place where working-class families struggle to make ends meet. With a population of just over 20,000, Arvin has a unique set of economic challenges that have intensified in recent years, placing immense pressure on its residents. The city's poverty rate, skyrocketing living expenses, and the struggle for middle-class families to stay afloat paint a stark picture of life in this overlooked community. As of the latest census data, Arvin has a poverty rate of nearly 40%, significantly higher than both the state and national averages. This statistic highlights the economic strain faced by many residents, where low wages and rising costs have trapped families in a cycle of financial instability. The typical household in Arvin earns around $41,000 per year, far below California's median household income of approximately $80,000. This income disparity is a key factor contributing to the growing divide between the wealthy and those struggling to get by. The high cost of living in California only exacerbates the difficulties faced by Arvin's residents. Despite the relatively low average household income, the cost of essentials such as housing, food, and health care continues to rise. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development (HUD, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Kern County is approximately $1,100, and this rate has been steadily increasing over the past decade. For many families in Arvin, this rent is a massive burden, consuming a significant portion of their already limited income.